Yo, what's up? Hope you're doing well. Zack Miller here. Excited to bring you guys the 97th edition of the 1004 show. Today, we're here with someone that I've known for the better part of a decade. His name, Kevin Curry. He's currently one of the founders at Comparity. You guys can learn about them at comparityins.com. In today's episode, we talk about how to raise money, or maybe how not to raise money, communication between co-founders, investors, evangelists, etc., and then what you do when you actually have to let a team member go. It's episode 97 with Kevin Curry of Comparity. You guys can learn about them, comparityins.com. I really appreciate the show. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I think you're going to like this episode. I've known Kevin, like I said, for a long time, and his just composure and his ability to always... I don't even know how to articulate this, but he just always has an open mind to anything. And we talk about this. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Let's get into it. Episode 97, Kevin Curry. So why do you think you're so bad at remembering these things, even though it's on your phone?
Are we doing this now or what? Are
what?
we podcasting live or are we?
It's not live.
No, I mean, are you recording now?
I've been recording for the last 2 minutes.
Okay.
I told you that.
Sorry. Yeah. All right. Sorry.
We'll just start with that question then. Cool.
What was the question? Yeah.
Okay. So you almost forgot about this interview. I mean, this is an important day of your life. I mean, this is like the most monumental interview, being on the 1004 show, episode 97. I mean, this is going to be a big impact for your life. So why do you struggle keeping up with your schedule?
With calendaring. But I did remember this one, right? So that's what counts. I got the little. I have to put up 10 and 15 reminders at a time. I don't know. I think probably because I'm doing a lot of different things in a lot of different communities, and I'm not that scheduled of a person. So yeah, it's a character flaw, honestly. But yeah.
So you do a lot. You own and have owned several businesses, and you also do a lot of activities. You're really active in kind of the civic technology scene in Virginia Beach, and obviously an avid sports fan. Why do you so passionate in all these things, and how do you kind of stay focused on those and the business, which obviously needs to bring in money so that you can live and support?
Yeah, so it's tough and takes a lot of practice and time, and I've gotten experience over many years, and have made mistakes with, getting overcommitted. I mean, the reason I do it is because I'm from here. I grew up here. My dad was in the Navy here, but we had the fortune of not having to move around a lot. He was on a boat all the time, and so this is my home and my community. And I've always instilled in me the value of civic service, public service, service to your country, any of that sort of thing. And I just kind of found an intersection between what I was doing at work professionally when I was in federal contracting with some of the things that I thought we could get accomplished around here locally in the civic space when it comes to civic technology. And so that's a big part of it. And then, of course, I do the startup stuff because that intersects with Comparity. And I mean, I think they all kind of fit together in terms of making a vibrant, healthy, strong home here where we live, Virginia Beach, Norfolk.
Still trying to figure out what to call that area, right?
I'll call it whatever. I don't really care. The marketers can call it Coastal Virginia. If they can sell that, I mean, that's what it comes down to, right? Is that they can buy ads in other markets where that resonates and drives people here, then more power to them. That's what they did with Virginia for Lovers. But you and I have gone around. We've had many conversations. Sure. I'm a Tidewater boy, right?
To me, it's at this point it's a non-story, and the reason being is that if you can't figure out a way to market these things, then that's the problem, not the name of it, right? And so if you're wondering why, and I think it doesn't even matter about a name of an area. It matters in your business or whatever, right? If you can't get in that concept in front of the right people to then make the actions that you want, that's the problem, not the name. So
not to mention, and not to get too far off on this, but not to mention they talked about two other huge important things in that article. Workforce development was a big one, which was a surprise to me. And what was the other one? I'm blanking on it now, but it was much more important than the name. What was the other one?
Well, it's kind of around the same concept. I just did a Facebook Live where people are like, "Well, this needs to be so polished." I'm like, "No, the content is what's most important, right? And as you get those followers, then you can start putting money into making things a little bit better and better and better." I love looking back at some videos. I was just telling you, I met you November 11th, 2011. So 7 years ago, it was an event that I was like the first big event that I ever hosted, other than my parties in college, of course. Called Start Norfolk. It was a build a company in a weekend competition. It was a lot of fun. 150 people showed up. We were hoping for 50. And I met you there. And I remember one of the things that you said was, "Oh, there's not a lot going on in this area, but at some point we are going to have to pick and choose those activities." I think that's changed over time. But that event, that was our first event. Like, we barely could afford to even pay for it. Like, we were still, I don't know if anyone actually knows this, but we were still selling sponsorships at the event to bring in food like the next day. I remember.
I remember, to get pizzas.
Yeah. And so, you do what you gotta do to grind. You do what you gotta do to make those happen. And when a lot more people showed up, and we're like, "Oh crap, we need we need more pizza," and people would pitch in, and that ended up working out well. So why do you think that just getting something out there is so important instead of making sure it's so polished and pretty?
Well, so I'll just speaking from the Comparity side of things in terms of being a startup business owner. It's all about sales and revenue, right? So we need to be out there selling, driving revenue in the door as fast as possible. And we're in the software business, insurance technology. And so we can iterate and be agile, and we have to be like moving around a lot. So, we publish our code several times a week, sometimes several times a day. It has, it needs polish sometimes, but we don't care. If we can get it out there, it's in the good enough box, we can make it better. So it's got to be about driving revenue. That's how I look at it.
What's the elevator pitch for Comparity?
The elevator. So we make it easy for people to shop for home insurance in a way that works for everybody in the marketplace. So we help home buyers especially get a side-by-side comparison of their home insurance options that they can easily choose from without selling their privacy, violating their privacy, and it fits right into the loan process. So the heart of what we do is I'm out of the elevator pitch speech, but the heart of what we do is connect insurance technology to loan origination technology to insurance carriers.
It's important to note that you are the Chief Technology Officer, not the CEO of the business, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I'm a managing partner and chief technology officer.
And what's important to note is, CTOs typically go on a little bit of like technical jargon and where your CEO, who is more the business side, and not that you don't know this, but I think it's what it complements you, right?
I've been in pitch mode actually and we've done that. We've done it a lot, and we've evolved and we've pivoted a few times, which is another reason why when you ask me that question, I'm thinking about new things. But it's been a long time since we've been in that mode of, hey, tell me about Comparity, so that because we're actually not really direct to consumer or raising money all that much anymore. So yeah.
When you're giving that pitch to someone, or you're actually in the elevator or you meet someone and you tell them, what kind of cues are you looking for to improve on what you're saying?
What kind of cues am I looking for from the people who
you're giving your audience, you're giving them a pitch or just saying, this is what I do. How do you learn to evolve that kind of copy? How do you learn or kind of take some of their cues where they're like, I don't understand what that means, and then change that?
Yeah, lots and lots of practice. So being in modes where you get asked that question, or being in situations where you get asked that question, you have to answer it a lot. So, and there are all kinds of activities around this area that help you do that. So that's practice is a great way, right? And you have to be a good listener and a good watcher of your audience. So natural, sort of behavioral, facial recognition, getting, people are like giving you quizzical looks, how long it takes you to spit it out, right? So I kind of just rambled and then got off track, right? So those are all the things that you're looking for um, when you're trying to convince, like an angel board, right? And you have a room full of investors. Helps to have a partner with you who's looking at the room, actually.
And understanding that. I mean, you guys came to the problem because he had lived it himself. He was selling insurance and came to you as a tech guy and said, "Hey, I think this is something we can do." Is that kind of the story?
Well, so actually, I was a customer first. My neighbor who was in the mortgage business, so the problem that was trying to be solved is that insurance agents are paying these ridiculous amounts of money for leads that are awful and have terrible conversion through these like net marketing things. Mortgage lenders are trying to work with their home buyers to get insurance at the time of closing, and it's super ad hoc, and home buyers don't have any help, and then they have all these people selling at them. And so like this was the problem space. And my neighbor who was in the mortgage industry trying to help me understand he was interested in this company, and he was talking to me as a tech guy and getting advice, and I just decided to try it. And because I'm a homeowner, I have a car and I have a boat, and my mother lives here, so we had a lot to look at, and it was so easy, and I felt so naive about my own situation and what I learned through the process that I kind of got hooked on it. And then I realized, wow, this insurance space and this, fintech, forget, you talk about fintech and banking. Well, mortgage is a huge part of that, and insurance is another huge part of that. And technology has got a long way to go in both of those spaces. And that really got me excited. So that's how I got involved.
Is this your playoff beard for like a big win?
This is like vacation beard that just kept going from last December.
There you go. What is Kevin Curry best in the world at?
Best in the understanding other people's perspectives, getting things that people have as their idea and kind of taking them to a next level. I'm usually pretty good at that, and I tend to kind of be able to see everybody's perspective in a situation, whether it's a collaboration or a conflict or something like that. Those are two things that I like about myself.
I've always appreciated, and I didn't always recognize this, but I've always appreciated you being so even keel with stuff, and really being able to consume other people's perspectives, and really, if someone had a perspective that was different, you accepted that, and you didn't just be like, nah, that's not the way. I don't like it that way. You accepted that and made that whole product or solution better. Is that something that just came out of nowhere? Is it something that you've tried to do?
I think that's just, I think that's who I am as a person. I've always been like that. So that's just who I am as a person. And I kind of go out of my way to, and it's not that I don't get excited or opinionated about certain things, because I definitely do. And sometimes I say dumb things, but yeah, I go out of my way to try to find other perspectives and be open-minded, whether it's business or the community or the dreaded politics word or anything like that. I think that's just who I am.
You guys have raised money in the past.
Yep.
What are some of your best tips to raise money?
Raise as little as you have to. It's so we've done, just to, by way of explanation, we've done mostly friends and family fundraising. I was an early investor, and we've gotten people from this community independently and connections through business and friends and family in Northern Virginia to raise a small amount of capital.
What's a small amount, roughly?
So I think in total in the lifetime among our friends and family, we're less than $500,000. I think that we've raised. I can't even remember the number that we're at, honestly. Scott could rattle this stuff
Just
off.
trying to get it from a context standpoint, like what's a small amount, right? Because some people might think 5,000, some people might think $1 million is a small amount. So more than 100,000, less than 500,000.
We've done, exactly. So we had raised like a pool of 75,000 and another, so we've done sort of multiple friends and family rounds that have gotten us up to less than $500,000. Yeah. And then we went out and did the angel fundraising rounds with New York Angels, Dingman Center, 757 Angels, and Scott would probably be he probably punch me in the face right now if I was explaining all this, because he would look at the fact that we went out to all those things and did not raise money from them as a bad sign and not something that we would want to share. I kind of feel differently about it. I think it's one of the best things that ever happened to us. We would have gotten the money and spent it on the wrong things. And then like that's the most important thing. We would have gotten the money and spent it on the wrong things, and having a lack of resources and having to struggle really hard made all the difference in the world in terms of us realizing what our real niche and strength was. And we wouldn't probably have discovered that had we gotten the money to go down a direction that we were headed down.
Well, I think you have to. I think you're right. It's figuring out how to crawl before you walk, if you will. And I think oftentimes people want to raise money because they think that it's going to, that will fix everything. When you just said it wouldn't have done it for yourself. I know with Hatch, we've never raised money. It's one of those things where you have to figure out what people want, and raising money doesn't solve that. And so I often think that people need to stop trying to raise money instead. So you think that it was a blessing. Scott would disagree. What did you learn in Scott's department?
Well, and we probably will go back out and raise some money, because we now having found that, do need to fuel growth in terms of marketing. And it's not that he would disagree with my assessment. He just doesn't like the idea of admitting that we tried to raise money and couldn't, and thinks that if we go out and try to raise money again, that will look bad on us. But New York Angels is going to know we've been there before if we come back to them. So, sorry, get back to the.
What did you learn through the process of trying to raise an actual round of funding?
Okay, yeah. So, well, we learned kind of like the true, I guess, tiers of funding in terms of personal funding, friends and family, Angel, Series A, B, C, et cetera, and where Angel really fits into that. Angel is beyond accelerator incubator stage, for one. So they're looking for revenue and tractions, and the specific things that hurt us that we have since solved were recurring revenue model. So our original model was 100% transactional, and we didn't have residual income, and so we needed to fix that. And we were too, sort of labor resource intensive from a sales side, and not technology focused enough on that.
So they wanted you to have like a subscription model built into it because that's a hot thing right now, or
no? So for us, in insurance, residuals means you are the insurance agent and you hold the policy for a person, and therefore you get income every year when they renew that policy. And then we actually have another source of residual income that I'm not really going to share here, but it gives us the ability to make money every single month off the same B2B plays. So
secrets. I love secrets.
We have so we had to find our niche. It's better to find a place that doesn't have a lot of competition, but you actually can demonstrate that there's need and demand, right? Versus go into a super competitive space. So the Angels, they wanted more maturity from us in our business model, more revenue, more stickiness, and we got lots of positive feedback. We made it down to deep into due diligence on all of those situations. So, and then ultimately I learned that I want to give up less equity and raise less money, because having struggled through it all and gotten to where we are and found our sweet spot, I don't want to give any of it up. So, that's the other thing I learned.
Sure. How do you communicate with your co-founders and investors? What's the kind of frequency? What do you say? What don't you say?
Well, Scott and I talk every day. Very rarely that we don't talk daily. Weekends and stuff, sometimes not. We send out regular updates, sort of just email, kind of somewhat casual, sometimes formal, to our advisors and investors. And then we have quarterly and special purpose virtual board meetings. And sometimes we meet in person, not all that often. We're mostly distributed in terms of our investors and advisors. So we do all those things.
And what type of information are you providing in those?
Everything from, hey, here's what's going on, to these are, metrics, milestones, goals. This is what we're trying to do. So we have one slide deck for investors and advisors. It's got, it's a template that we fill in for our quarterly meetings of, where we're at with money, where we're at with partnerships, roadblocks, any connections that we might need from them, that sort of thing. And then the emails are a little less like a little bit more like, here's what's going on. And, hey, we just got some interesting news to share with you, or something like that.
I know there's been some bad times with Comparity where you guys were, less than fortunate and things just weren't going the way that you want to. So when you had to write an email like that to the investors, what did you say?
We just told them like it is. I mean, we've had several moments where we're like, hey, we look like we've hit a dead end. We don't know if it's going to keep going. We had a great, we had a fantastic sort of verbal offer from a big partner that fell apart, during the meeting with the final decision maker. And we just had to, tell them like it is. And fortunately for us, all of our investors and advisors have stepped back up and have believed in us. So you got to tell them.
Something that I don't think is talked enough about in business is people thinking about throwing in the towel and how they make that decision to or not to throw in the towel. Sounds like you guys have thought about that before in the past, to some extent. What's kind of the process that you guys went through to ultimately decide to not throw in the towel?
Well, I always call my dad, because he's built a successful business and has struggled at it. So he's always like the first person I call. But we talk to each other, hash it out. Me and Scott primarily, and then we, once we've come to sort of where we're at, we've always made the decision to go forward, and and that's always the intent, right, going in. But when we ask ourselves the tough questions and we figure out where we're at, then we go to talk to our advisors and see what they think, and generally they're encouraging. Of course, nobody wants to lose any of their money that they've invested in this company, so that's always something that drives us. He and I feel very obligated, to that. At some point, you have to decide, is it going to work or not? And for us, every time we face that decision, we've seen, it's just kind of more focused our path, right? And so we're, I guess, fortunate in that way that, we've come close to running out of money and signed a contract within days of that. So that's part of it.
The roller coaster, right? I mean,
yeah.
There's a thing.
Well, when we did, remember the first 1 million cups, right? And
3 years
ago, State Senator Wagner came, and Frank Wagner, who's also an entrepreneur, and he talked about the roller coaster life of an entrepreneur. And we were early on in Comparity. We were in the first presenters at that, and I didn't realize at the time that he was talking about like multiple times in the same day. It's not just month to month, week to week. It can be you can be on top of the world part at the beginning of the day and dead at the end.
Usually, the biggest, craziest things all happen within minutes of each other with me, right? So there have been times where I'll get an email on something that I feel that we should win, business-wise, or something, right? And then I hear, oh no, we're not giving it to you. Or, we've decided not to do this deal with you. I'm like, what? How did that happen? And then literally like 15 minutes goes by, I get a phone call from someone, a different deal going, hey, we're going to go forward with doing this. And you're like, the emotional piece of that, it is crazy.
It
And the
is.
dips are wild, and this stuff isn't for the faint of heart because like people don't get that.
Yeah, and especially if you have family and you know, spouse and kids and all that stuff, it can be tough. You know, I think you maybe kind of just hit on something in which, you know, there's sort of serendipity, but then there's not. And you know, you and I have pretty strong networks, right? And so it kind of maybe demonstrates the power of networks. Because even before in my previous company at defense contracting, it wasn't always a defense contractor, Bridgeborn. They're still in business, and I'm still a very minority shareholder. But we were all sitting around the table at the predecessor to Bridgeborn, having just failed as a company, sitting around the table, um, going, "Has anyone been to the unemployment office before?" And within 2 or 3 hours, we had enough of our board members and investors of that company convinced that we had enough to keep going forward, that you know, they very effectively wound up and restarted, um, really just on an idea and the people. Um, and so anyway, you just made me think of that story because it's actually happened to me more than once too. And
So you've been to the unemployment office?
no, I never had to
You never
get
had
to
to get
that.
there. Okay.
Yeah, that's just it. So I don't know if you want to hear the story about that company and how we. Okay, so there's this company, Mariah Vision Entertainment. All right, so in a past life, I did a virtual reality research at OD Research Foundation, and when I was out trying to find out, you know, how I could get involved in the commercial side of things and not the defense contracting side of things, I found this Virginia Beach company called Mariah Vision, who was making race car simulators. And they were using the 3D graphics technology in their simulators to try to bring it to the web. So we made this box product called Threescape, and you've seen the Threescape that I made, which was it. Well, it has a common origin, and this box product was called Threescape, and our CEO was we had ads in Wired magazine. Our CEO was doing the junket tour all around, you know what, and this was. Well, I'll tell you what year it was in a second. This is a long time ago, like 18 years ago. Um, so this was the real deal, right? And think of what we were making was like Adobe Creative Suite for like 3D web. And people were excited about it. And we were going to market in September of 2001. So, so not only do we remember September 11th, which is like when that happened, right? But the the dot com bubble had burst back in January, and we just hadn't felt the effects of it yet here. So we're going to market September 2001. The dot com bubble has burst, and our investors are like, "We're done. We're pulling the plug." And we had product on the assembly line getting ready to be shipped, and that's when we were all sitting around going, "Anybody been to the unemployment office?" So, but we put together a core group of us rallied together and said, "Hey, we have a really good something here. Who do we know? Who can we contact?" And so that's the other part of that. I guess you have to always be, it's not just the luck of the network. I mean, it's cliche to say you make your own luck, but I mean, we were out there not wanting to give up, thinking, how can we keep this going?
So I got a lot of notes now to ask you about these things. So, reflection is something that I think is extremely important, not just in business but in life. What are you doing? And maybe it sounds like you're not doing this. What are you doing to make sure that scenarios from the past don't happen again, so that you learn from them?
Uh,
Right. So you
um,
just said, I forgot about this story from 18 years ago, right? But you've gone through it a couple of times. So how do you make sure that you are doing the best things possible to make sure that you don't that you have learned from your mistakes in the past?
well, so, I mean, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm not yet. I think, I mean, part of it is in the nature of where, what we do is is that risk and that environment's going to present itself multiple times, just as a matter of course, right? So it's maybe preparing yourself for how to handle it when it comes, as much as preventing it. In terms of what I'd have to think about that, and maybe I'd get back to you on that. Maybe I haven't thought about how we would. I know definitely being agile. That's helped us anticipate and avoid that situation. So before we hit the end, hit the end of the line, and we're constantly looking at our burn, right? So that's another thing. As I talk more about this, we're constantly looking at that burn so that it doesn't catch you by surprise. And as you're looking at it and you're seeing your expenses, you're thinking, how can I adjust my operations to extend that runway if I don't get more money in? So that's definitely something. I haven't thought about that as a lesson, but thinking about it now with you, that's definitely what we do.
That's what I do here as the world's greatest interviewer.
I was thinking about that before this. I mean, it's a good resource for people to be able to talk about it. It's your entrepreneur therapy.
Well, thank you for that plug. I'm definitely going to use that quote over and over again. You talked about how it's tougher with family, right? I personally, and I actually might have thought of this just yesterday. I was thinking about it, but when people say, like, what's the worst that could happen, right? Getting a job, losing money. For me, it would be like to lose my wife, right? For her to leave, right? And I never thought about that before until yesterday. And so, like, with family, being a business owner, like, what do you do to improve upon that, to make sure that you can support them and do the things that a father and a husband and a son is supposed to do?
So, well, we've had that conversation. My wife and I have had that conversation where it's like, it doesn't feel good to be unstable at home in the income and department, and how much longer? The question will be, how much longer do you want to go do this? And fortunately, I have super understanding spouse and very supportive family, and I think probably have a pretty unique situation among entrepreneurs in that I've been able to save up my own money and have investment support in my company to help with that. One thing that we deliberately do, being a startup entrepreneur person and have an unconventional schedule, right? I work out of my house. I work at 1701 Virginia Beach Co-working, and I work at ODU Innovation Center in Norfolk, and I'm kind of all around the place, and I have an unconventional schedule. So I take advantage of that with my family, right? So my wife, who's a kindergarten teacher's assistant, gets off at 3 p.m. I'm able to hang out with her at 3 p.m. I can adjust my vacation schedule around theirs pretty easily versus somebody who may have, paid time off allotment, and that sort of thing. So you just look for little things like that, I think.
That's definitely something that when I had that similar conversation with my wife, I remind her that, hey, all these things that you want me to be able to do on a dime, it's because of this. And although I might not be where you want us to be,
it's the quality of life is a huge part of why we're doing it anyway, right? So, and you'll hear people talk about, is a startup a lifestyle business, or is it the next unicorn or whatever? But I think no matter why anybody's doing it, it's for their quality of life anyway. So, I'll just always be thinking about that in terms of your current situation, right? So if your current situation is that I don't have a ton of money, but I have free time.
When you wake up happy, you wake up excited about that day. Even if things are going bad, it's very different than when you don't have a good quality of life, right? I mean, I know that when I worked for the man in corporate America, I woke up, I'd go to the bar every night till 2 a.m., wake up to go to work by 9 or 10, miserable every single day. Like, that wasn't fun. Like, it was, I was doing those things because I felt that was what I had to do, right? I mean, we're taught for so long that this is the path that you need to go through, and you get to it and you're like, this is miserable. And I think a lot of people want to get out of it. And one of the things we try and encourage people to do is, hey, like, you can create your own lifestyle, but you have to be out there. You have to be creating content and concepts that people want you to see. I mean, you have to be the anomaly.
That's true.
Like,
you do.
Like the plug there.
That's true. Well, I look forward to reading more about that.
Yep. You will see stuff soon. You talked about the network being important. When you were a nobody, way back when, what were some of the strategies that you did to get in front of people that had more clout than you?
Strategies. I don't know if it's strategies or, again, it comes down to just personality sometimes. Yeah, because I mean, I just naturally get out there, right? So like I found you because I was interested in my community and I saw something interesting, and so I didn't hesitate, right? I wrote you an email. I'd probably try to contact you 2 or 3 different ways. And so that's, and I'm not so much an extrovert, really, honestly. It doesn't take being an extrovert to get out there, but I am not afraid to make connections and to go and find like-minded people around me and that sort of thing. I just do it.
Yeah, so a strategy that I have to kind of grow my network. So I'm trying to expand, right? I'm trying to, expand my network and to tell the stories of other people while expanding this network at the same time. So basically there's people that I learn about online or through other people, and I literally just will reach out to them and say, hey, just want to introduce myself. I have this show. I would love to bring you on as kind of like an introductory call, and then just learn about you and then share it with my network as well. And honestly, it works pretty well, and it's not hard. But you have to be able to do these things, right? You have to be like, oh, I see that person, and realize that what is the vehicle that you can connect with them, and then just do it, right? What's the worst thing that happens? They don't respond. I mean, it's not 100% foolproof. Like, definitely people don't respond or aren't interested. Whatever. I'm not going to waste my time on that. One of the things I talked to Laura Roeder about from Meet Edgar, she's going to be in episode 100, is what do you do with an email list that isn't working? And do you just quit on it? And she's like, no, only focus on the people that are opening it. Like, the people who aren't going to open it, who cares? Like, so the same thing. If people aren't going to give you the attention, screw them. Like, don't worry about it. Like, just move on to the people who will.
So you did make me think of I guess a deliberate strategy that I have adopted, which I guess I mostly use on Twitter, honestly. Is I look to sort of promote what other people are doing and the things that I'm interested in. Right. So I'm not necessarily promoting what I'm doing, but it's very closely related to what it is I'm doing. And it's something that I think from somebody else who's smart, like, I liked it and I share it. And that actually, I mean, that's how I met Tim O'Reilly, was through Twitter, because he was doing the Gov 2.0 a set of events. He did Gov 2.0 Expo, Gov 2.0 Summit, which is like part of his conference business back in 2009. And I had been following him just because of his interest in terms of, evangelizing what was happening in Silicon Valley back then. And then I learned that he was interested in government, and I was interested in that as well. And he was tweeting, and I said, hey, you might be interested in this paper from I think it was the Princeton Review, and it was a bunch of researchers had written this really cool paper, and I sent it to him, and he, retweeted it. And like back in 2009, that was awesome. It's still awesome to get retweeted by him. And then he actually replied back to me and sent me a direct message and said, hey, would you like to be on this conference I'm planning around Gov 2.0 Summit? So,
Put
I
your
mean,
put yourself out there, and guess what can happen.
yeah,
If you
yeah.
don't, if you're waiting for an action to happen, it's not going to happen. You have to create that action. And I think, a lot of people get jealous and angry and mad at other people. And it's like, you know what that person did that you didn't? They reached out to those people. And if you don't do it, it's not going to happen. You have had to do something pretty tough. You've had to kind of get rid of some team members at certain times. Obviously, something that I've also had to do. It's very hard. When did you know that you need to let someone go, and how long before you actually made that decision and did it?
So when not quite soon enough in one case, just because things were kind of declining quickly, and sometimes you just want to stick your head in the sand and ignore a problem coming. And if you do that even for a half a second, it can come back to bite you, which means just trying to say that one instance not soon enough. It kind of caught everybody by surprise. Not so much us by surprise. We could see it coming. But even like 2 weeks is super fast when somebody's got to go look for a job. Um, uh, yeah, so it's always kind of come down to really the wire. You're always balancing, right? The idea that next set of money can come in and you don't have to fire those people. So that's the really tough part, right?
Well, and it's the human
Is
aspect of it. It's like you are friends with, or you make a relationship with this person. Sometimes they become friends, and you sit there. In my case, it was months. Right? I knew I needed to do it for months. This happened last year. I let someone go, and I appreciate the person. I'm very thankful for all the things that they did, and I kept things on as long as humanly possible. But honestly, that was probably not a very smart decision, right?
yeah,
I mean, I think that's kind of what you're saying. Put your head in the sand, like, oh, we're going to get through this, but it doesn't always
yeah,
happen.
and they're going to want to know. And we are always very upfront, and we don't not regularly communicating about it, but always upfront and hiring about the risky nature of the business. And we just have to be. People have to know that they're getting into something. We tell them, look, you could lose your job at a moment's notice. Um, and so we've had people willing to take that risk, but it doesn't make it any easier on anybody.
It's not fun. What's something about Kevin Curry that most people do not know about?
Jeez, I don't know. I don't. No idea. One thing that most people about me don't know about. You got me, my man. I don't know. I'm out there everywhere, doesn't it? If it's something, it's probably a dark, terrible secret.
Well, that Tim O'Reilly thing was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I guess maybe people around here don't know that or have forgotten. But yeah, that was fun. I mean, I guess this is my third startup that I've been involved with. All right, so the first one was VR Co. Um, and then the Mariah Vision, then Bridgeborn, then Code for America, and then this, and all of those have been startups. So
What about Threescape too?
yeah, so yeah, in Threescape, so in between leaving Code for America, so I did a 2-year stint at Code for America, and it was kind of a planned thing. And afterwards, I was going to go back to Bridgeborn, and I did for a little while, but it was still pretty much the government contracting that I didn't want to do. And so in between that and finding Comparity, I tried Threescape, and we just put a little bit of money into it, and I hired a few people, mostly students, and we built something cool. And it's still online at threescape.me. Um, but that space is so hard. It's going to take so much money. It moves so fast that I didn't see it as sustainable. We didn't have a business model yet.
So fast as you build a feature and someone else is already 4 features ahead of you because they can do that, or
Yeah, and just virtual reality, augmented reality, and 3D as an environment is the wild, wild west. And I've been doing it, and I had been doing it literally. I just thought about this since 1997. and it's still the wild, wild west. So you talk about not for the faint of heart. You just need a lot of money to keep up with the pace and the uncertainty.
What do you do in your free time?
Fish. I like to go fishing a lot.
Do you eat the fish that you catch?
Usually that's the kind of fish that I go for. So like cobia and striper and speckled trout and everything that you can get out here in the Chesapeake Bay and the Lynn Haven River and the Virginia Beach ocean front. That's probably the number one thing. I spend a lot of my free time volunteering.
Very cool. What is something that Southeastern Virginia, from a business perspective, is missing that you think can actually be implemented?
Oh, you should put that you had to put that caveat on there that could actually be implemented, because the biggest thing missing is like airport transportation in and out of here. Well, so the latest thing that I've been thinking about in terms of business and growth and bringing people here is like focusing on teleworkers, right? So we have investments that we're making in high-speed internet all over the place, and we're touting like this fastest connection to South America and Spain. And I've heard like I always ask people, Navy people especially, because I'm a native from here, like what they do and don't like about the area. And lots of people say they like to live here, but they would never really come visit here, which is, ironic for a place that's got 1.4 billion in tourism or whatever. Anyway, the point that I was making is that like a lot of people really like to live here, and they're like sick of San Francisco and New York and all this other stuff. How about if they come here and work and telework and use those high-speed internet connections and create hubs for bigger businesses elsewhere? Anyway, I don't know if that's what's missing or the big idea, but that's just something I've been thinking about lately.
No, it makes sense. Like leverage living here, but actually work somewhere else, right? And as remote work is gets bigger. I now work remotely. I think it's glorious. Obviously, Comparity is basically a remote business in multiple different locations in town. And
I think developers are all over the place.
Yeah, I think people need to accept it and realize like this actually could be a lot more effective, more productive. Like Dave Ritt, my creative director, lives in Denver. I mean, he's way more productive now, and he's in an environment that he wants to be in. Like he can, and I tell him like, no, like I do want you to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, right? Ish, right? But I want you like to have nights and weekends. And to be able to do that, I need to make sure that we're developing this kind of rhythm and routine so that you can do that. But if we make it so that you want to work, overnights, we would need to figure out a different routine to do that. So I do think the 9 to 5 thing is a good way to communicate and get things done. But I want him to have a life too, and I think that's something a lot of employers, don't do enough of.
Well, we tend to extend the business day hours too. So we have clients big in Las Vegas and California that we have to be online for late anyway. But what do you think is the let me put that question back to you. What do you think is something big or important that's missing here that could be implemented?
I think it's leveraging assets, leveraging what we're the best in the world at, and not trying. And I think this should be any area, not just we happen to live in the same area, right? So
is that the geography? A lot of it.
I think a lot of it has to do with water, right? Things around water, right? If we have water, the beaches, the deepest port in the country, really strong water from a quality standpoint to drink it. No one's gonna drink like this. Do a drink like this. The alcohol piece. Those are all things that not only we have as a natural asset, but we also have really strong ties to and are known for those things. And so I think it's something that it's what we're already good at. And instead of trying to create new industries or silos that we don't have proven yet, let's reinforce those things that we're really good at. And sometimes it's tweaking the words. Like maybe it's not tourism, maybe it's an experience, right? Virginia Beach is an experience. And I often, I'm questioned by people because they're like, well, why don't we try and do cybersecurity or all these other new things? And I'm like, those things aren't what we're best at. And if we are best at these things, why are we trying to change that when we haven't even become the best in the world at that in a global kind of, economy? But So I would focus on, any community, focus on the assets that you already have, and that you're known for and you're good for, and good at, and make sure you're doing whatever you can to make those things, continue. Because I don't think any of those things actually change, right? I don't think tourism ever goes away. I don't think the port ever goes away, right? No. And experiences are getting bigger and bigger, and the whole microbrew or alcohol scene with water, like, those are big things that are never going to go away. I mean, you think alcohol is going to go away? No.
Daily Press ran, Tara Bozic ran something today in Daily Press about agritourism, which and I was like, now if you talk about regional tourism marketing.
So there are hops being built on the Eastern Shore, right? So I don't know if she talked about any of that stuff. Like, if marijuana ever becomes legal in Virginia, probably going to be grown here in the Eastern Shore because of, agribusiness like that. Like, you got to think that these things are going to happen. The wineries, the distiller. I mean, what are we best at? And those are community-based things that have these huge communities, which means you have followings, which means people are talking about it, right? What are the two things on Facebook that are going to be shared the most? Like being at a brewery and pictures of food, right? Other than cats and babies, right? So if you can be known for those things, and we're starting to see that, at a national and global perspective, that's what you should double down on. That's what you should, focus on, because that's where people go. People want experiences.
Yeah, that's a good one. I agree with that.
Well, thank you. So, wrapping things up with Kevin Curry, Comparity, INS.com is the website. It's episode 97. Kevin, I appreciate your time today. Why ComparityINS.com and not Comparity.com?
Because Comparity.com is a Scottish electrician who has not responded to any solicitations for getting that domain. Is the short and funny reason. Honestly, the URLs don't matter anymore.
Why?
Because they're just, if you type in Comparity to a search engine, you're going to find us. If you type compare home insurance, that's a competitive space. But, if you know our name, you're going to find us.
Yeah. So from a direct link perspective, people are going to, whether they're going to it from a link somewhere or, like you said, through a
don't get me wrong. I'd like to have Comparity.com.
Sure.
But there's a lot of and there's a .insurance domain, and actually Joe Fuller had asked us, why would we not do Comparity.insurance, and I kind of gave him the same answer. It's just like, if that's not going to be the reason people find us.
Love it. If you had 30 seconds to pitch yourself, what would you say?
Please take a look at my civic meetup, Code for Hampton Roads, at meetup.com/code4HR. If you live in the area and you're interested in figuring out how to use your technology or technology-related design, marketing, communication skills to do good here in Hampton Roads.
That is Kevin Curry. This was episode 97 of the 1004 show. Kevin Curry, appreciate it. Congrats on our 7-year anniversary knowing each other, and to 7 more. Woo. Cheers, brother, and hope to see you soon.
Yeah, likewise. Take care.